Hello there, right here we have a brand new 1.16 snapshot. This is 20W22A, and in this snapshot they did a lot of bug fixing as well as quite a few different features, including massive changes to the way villagers get their occupations and how they choose to keep them. There's also new rendering changes, and there is a lot of bug fixes in this new snapshot, many of which will affect the way we play the game. I'll be going into all the changes in this new snapshot and how it will affect you guys. And don't forget to go ahead and hit the subscribe button, because if every one of you guys who watch my video have hit it, we would be over 12 million subscribers now, and it's completely free. Now let's get into all the new changes with 22A. The first change that they made is how the piglins celebrate when they do finish a hunt. So you can see they just finished killing a hoglin, and they're doing this weird celebration where their arms stick out and they're kind of like lifting their shoulders up and down. It looks pretty crazy. The guys that are holding crossbows are pointing straight outwards, the swords are pointing forward. And yeah, they're like, their whole head's kind of bob. It's really strange, but they are celebrating that they just killed a hog. It gives a little more life and lore to the story about the hoglins and the piglins. They changed bells so that they can hang down from a lot more different types of blocks. They also made it so that if there was a villager that you traded and it got struck by lightning, turns into a witch, it will no longer despawn. That way if you come back and see a bunch of witches in your trading hall, you know that they were actually struck by lightning. Otherwise you come back and they're just completely gone because they turn into a witch and then they despawn. And a lot of people don't know about this witch converting villager thing. So they made some really big changes to villagers and how they look for workstations, their workstation logic. So villagers will no longer try to work at the same workstation. So let's go ahead and place one down for this guy. So what this means is that villagers will be able to kind of go to whatever workstation is an area and work from it. They don't have to necessarily go back to their exact workstation. Now I don't think he'll come over here and start working in this workstation because this is a different profession, but I'm sure he'll be able to work in this one. Now they go on to say that the most experienced nearby villager with the profession corresponding to the workstation you added will get that workstation. So if I go ahead and we got one villager here that has his normal trades, and this one here opened up some extra trades, and if I remove both workstations and I put another workstation back down again, this guy will take the workstation, and this other guy, he won't be able to use it. Even though this guy is technically locked up, and therefore he can't lose his profession. So this prevents you from going ahead and kind of using one workstation for several villagers by first locking them up, and then removing the workstation so it's no longer theirs, and then giving it to another guy who has no workstation. Now you're either going to have to move this guy far away so he doesn't take this workstation, or put down more for the new guys. They also made change that villagers will now have to walk to and reach their workstation before they'll actually get the profession. So notice how this guy actually has to walk all the way over here before he can actually get it. So they can't just like see that there's a workstation over there and automatically switch professions. This does mean we'll have to change the way in which we kind of convert villagers over in large amounts, where we have to put the workstation close enough so they can actually reach it. That means we're going to have to redesign those villager breeders that I showed in the past. And we'll be doing that right after this video goes live. I'll be live streaming in a world with the viewers with the newest 1.16 snapshots, setting up cool machines and farms with these new changes. So make sure you follow me there on Twitch. Now villagers will also not claim any profession during nights or raids. Let's go ahead and set the time to 15,000, but it seems like he still can. Maybe because he had one before. If we go ahead and we remove it, he will lose it. And I also said that villagers will check to make sure that their workstation is valid at all times of the day, as long as they are within 16 blocks of their workstation. This means if we put like a workstation up here and this guy is able to access it, and I think if we would remove it so he can no longer get to it, it seems he can still notice that he has a workstation over here. He doesn't lose his profession. But I guess if we remove it, then he'll probably notice it. Let's go ahead and break it. Yeah, he lost his profession. He won't be able to gain it back until you can walk up to it. Now let's go ahead and teleport the villagers more than 16 blocks away. So they're way over here. Oh, they're trying to walk back to their workstation. They put them way over here. Okay, let's run over here and break their workstation. See if he loses his profession. It looks like he hasn't lost it, even since he was over 16 blocks away from it. So I guess it does work. So if you have him really far from the workstation, they will no longer quickly lose their profession. Okay, you can see he got back over here and now he actually lost his profession. So he got within range of where he thought it was. I guess as long as they're kind of far away from the workstation, they never update like this. And notice how the guy with the most experience took this workstation here. We would go ahead and allow this guy to get a workstation. And we take this guy's workstation away. This guy should be able, the older guy should be able to take this guy's workstation. So let's see if that happens. So it looks like this guy never took his workstation. So it may only apply to new workstations and who get it first. That's a good thing because it'd be kind of annoying if this guy came over here and bumped this guy off and then you had some guy that you had some good trades with and he lost him. They also came out with a new experimental rendering change. So now chunks will render differently than before. They said this might affect old graphics cards. If any guys notice anything like that, make sure to report that to them, while also telling them what type of graphics card you have. They added shader support for accessing depth buffer. The render now also uses per pixel blending layers for some transparent elements. Let's go ahead and grab some glass and see if we can notice anything. There's some different transparent glass. And I don't know, it looks fine to me. Per pixel is pretty small. Usually I don't pay too much attention to the graphics. Speaking of graphics, if you guys know any ways that I can improve my very own graphics, let me know down in the comments, especially when running Optifine. They also did some changes to pathfinding. Now they cache the repeated block type lookups and collision during pathfinding for increased performance. So it doesn't have to constantly try to figure out what different blocks collisions are. It has a bunch of them memorized if it's already traversing a similar area. Hopefully any kind of mob farm where we have mobs AIing themselves, it should work a lot better and create less lag. Because oftentimes using mob AI in a farm is worse than using something like pistons to move them. They did some minor optimization in collision detection. They also made a change with top level elements in a predicate file can now be array, where all contents will be and. They also made a slight change to data packs and loading them to prevent custom data packs from crashing. Quite a few different changes that they made to the data pack loading, which includes if data pack loading fails, the changes will not be applied and the game will continue using the previous data. If existing data pack prevents the world from loading, the game will give options to load the world in a safe mode, which loads only the vanilla data pack. And any changes made to the data pack list are stored only after successfully loading. They also added a safe mode option in the server to load only with vanilla data packs. And the game now will detect critical data pack issues like missing required tags and prevent the world from being loaded. All these changes really have to do because they had a lot of trouble with data packs causing crashes, mostly because people were missing kind of some information in their data pack and still trying to upload it. So it's kind of similar to mods. Data packs can do a lot of different changes to the games. Because of that, they kind of need that extra safety check before being allowed to be put into the game. Otherwise, you're going to run into issues with crashing like they did in the past. So it's really cool that they got all those safety measures enabled so people that want to kind of modify Minecraft can do that a lot easier. They also fixed a wide range of bugs in the snapshot and some extremely old ones. So they fixed it so that lily pads will no longer be able to intersect entities when they are placed in. It was a strange thing that would occur when you're inside of a bed and you sleep. You wouldn't be able to push the up arrow and put in those messages that you typed in before. And I thought they actually fixed this, but it just got fixed now and it's an old one as well. The next bug has to do with dungeons and how they generate. If two dungeons intersect each other, one will be able to replace the spawner with cobblestone. It's kind of interesting that they fixed this bug because dungeons haven't been touched in a long time. But this was quite a big deal back in the day when you could push in blocks and actually generate dungeons. If you want to get a whole bunch of dungeons really close to each other, you had to often put the spawners really close together, meaning that the walls could replace the spawner themselves. Stuff like chests, I believe, will not get replaced, so they can actually sit inside of walls. Another bug to do with generation, which is strongholds and dungeons were generating over top of each other. The way this is working, when a dungeon generates in, it is often the first structure that generates, and then later on the game will see like, hey, this is a nice little cave here. I can put a dungeon right in here. I'll just cut out a big hole and stick a dungeon in there, which could mean it actually destroys parts of the stronghold. With these new changes, you probably won't really see any dungeons connected to strongholds. This might also apply to other things like mine shafts. They did a removal of the log4j2 plugins.dat. This was causing a slowdown during the startup. It was about 3 seconds wasted there when it just rescanned all the classes. A lot of guys did point out that in general Minecraft loads up the game itself a lot slower than before, as well as going into worlds it loads slower, as well as leaving worlds can often be slow, the slow saving thing. Especially if you play on older versions, you really notice how much slower the newer versions are. When writing a pig, the pig's rotation were wrong, and this is something they addressed. This next bug is a big one. They fixed it so Endermen can no longer despawn with blocks that they are holding in their hand. Ever since 1.12.2, this has been a problem where they could pick up some potentially useful blocks and just despawn with them. And over time you lose a lot of terrain. But this is actually a really big deal because in the Sky block world, we actually have a single block of grass which we have to take very good care of. And as world progresses, we actually have to move that block, but we don't have access to Silk Touch or Pistons for quite a while. And I had the idea to actually get an Enderman to pick up the grass block and kill the Enderman, and he would actually Silk Touch it for us and we could get the Silk Touch block. And we actually attempted to do this, and guess what happened? The Enderman despawned and he was holding our only grass block, so that was pretty major. Really glad that this bug was fixed. We should be able to pull off that really cool strat. This should also mean that Endermen that are holding blocks probably won't count to the mob cap, which could help in a lot of farms, especially like in our grass converter farm on ProtoTech, as well as our melon block farm. We can get faster spawns as soon as they pick up the melon blocks, even if they haven't died with them yet. They fixed a bug that I reported quite a while ago, which was some baby mobs will actually drown and won't stay above the surface. Even if they look like they are above the surface, they will eventually drown like baby fox. So now all short mobs no longer drown if they're just below the surface. It was a weird quirk to do with redstone. If you had it kind of going down like this and you would power this, what would happen is this would break, but this redstone line would still stay in a straight line and wouldn't update. Any kind of update to this would eventually make it turn back into the default redstone. This really doesn't affect any redstone kind of builds. It was more of a visual thing, as you are breaking redstone, which you normally don't do in any type of machine. They fixed this so redstone dust will once again be able to update connections going up and down being placed on command blocks. There was a problem that foxes were actually rendering inside of spawners, and now they look really good. I wonder if the fox can have like a chance of holding something in its mouth inside of this little image, similar to like zombies having a chance of wearing armor inside of theirs, or holding a tool. They fixed a bug that was pretty annoying, which is multiple villagers are attaching themselves to the same professional block or the workstation. And that's something they kind of addressed by making them do that special check. So this should prevent villagers from coming into like an area where you want to swap out their trades and they just automatically take someone else's workstation, even when you want to give them a different workstation. They also made a change so that zombie reinforcements can no longer spawn on glass. A zombie reinforcements is when you like keep punching a zombie and eventually calls in more zombies kind of nearby. And because it's not the same kind of summoning as if a zombie was summoned into the world through like natural means, they often spawn into really weird spots, such as like on top of glass. And with the changes they made to blocks, this was occurring, so they changed it. So now we shouldn't really see zombie reinforcements spawning on stuff other than what they normally can spawn on. You won't see them as often inside like donut gold farms. They also made it so that zombie reinforcements will now also pay attention to light levels and only spawn if the light level is lower than 9 in the nether dimension. So if places are well lit up, you shouldn't get zombie reinforcements. They reverted back a change which was some chest loot is randomized, even if you use the same seed. This started occurring at 1.14 when before it was the same. This affects stuff like villages chest, villager outpost chest, rune portals, as well as bastion remnants. This has always been a concern for speedrunners, especially when they're using a set seed. They have a particular seed that they're going to use, and in that seed there is chests that spawn, and they know where those are at, and they expect the items that are inside the chest to be the same every time they go into the same exact seed. So this should really help out speedrunners, especially in speedrunning in the new 1.16 version when it comes out. This is always something that confused me because in the past in 1.9 they said they changed it so that chests will have random stuff inside of them, even on the same seed. But apparently they didn't apply this, and I know people like Illumina and Asquaredrt do a lot of speedrun. They keep very good track of this. They address the problem to do with the experience between an apprentice and a journeyman being less experienced than shown on the XP bar. There was a problem where the villagers that lived in the two high houses would often look for a different bed when they came out of one of the beds at the top. There's a really strange bug to do with if a person was in creative and he had a sword and he would spam right click on blocks as he walked forward, it would constantly keep jerking him backwards. One of the ProtoTech members, Zoom, came across this and it was really strange. It had to do with because you can't actually break blocks when holding a sword in creative. I was doing some kind of check which was also resetting the player's forward movement. But now you can see it's working just fine. There was a bug to do with the world border is rendering behind transparent blocks. Now overall there is quite a few different bugs to do with transparency and stuff rendering in front of stuff they shouldn't. And a lot of these bugs have just really been postponed. So it's interesting that they would fix this one. Now if you had food on a campfire and you put it out by right clicking it with a shovel, which puts out the campfire, the items on the campfire would actually not drop. You can see they have now fixed this and they do drop. They also address the really weird and annoying bug, which is the player sometimes when he places a block, he'll kind of reach out and place a block, but oftentimes he could do the same animation again like he placed a block for the second time. So they have two arm animations even though there should have been one. Really glad they fixed this because it has to do with having high ping. I had pretty good ping towards our testing server, so I noticed this quite often. Another bug they fixed was to do with how villagers that had higher profession levels wouldn't have first access to the workstations over unemployed. So that's where they kind of did this change with the villagers. They also changed it so that your arm will no longer kind of move while you are drinking some kind of potion or honey bottle. Before your arm would swing out like you're trying to throw the item out of your inventory. Bees that went inside of a beehive or nest were not allowing them to increase their natural growth timer so they wouldn't grow up over time, or their breeding timers, and they went ahead and changed this. They said if you have a mob in a spawner that's the same as one in your hand, and you right click it, it shouldn't play the hand animation, but it looks like it's still doing that. But something I did notice in the past, if you would right click a spawner like I'm doing now, it would kind of reset it and make them instantly spawn. But I'm not seeing that now. They fixed a pretty old bug, which was when you had an item thrown on top of glass, the item would allow you to see through the glass and wouldn't render very well. So it's really cool that they're actually fixing these rendering issues. If someone does the /clear command, it wouldn't remove any items that were inside of a crafting table. Now hoglins were strange, they're actually able to immediately attack invisible players, even though they shouldn't be able to see them. So now you should be able to use invisibility potions around them. Also, structures were actually able to override the generation of strongholds and even the entrance end portal, meaning you wouldn't be able to get to the end dimension. There was a problem that lighting wasn't propagating across chunk borders as it should. This made houses that had multiple light sources kind of have weird shading. It made a change so it's no longer possible to right click inside of mountable entities if you're holding shift. So if I'm holding shift and right click on this, I'm not able to hop into it. Before you'd be able to hop into it and then you automatically get kicked back out because you're holding shift. I actually use this to increase my minecart ridden statistic by being kind of far away and clicking and holding shift at the same time, and this would actually count as you riding a minecart really far and you could get your stat up really fast. But this also caused a desync when mounting an entity while sneaking, meaning that the game might think that you might be on the entity or not on the entity when you really were. And that's why they changed it. Piglins are able to pick up quite a bit of stuff. The problem is when they were getting converted over, they weren't actually dropping all the stuff that they were holding inside of their inventory. And now they fix it, so you get your stuff back from them if they convert. There was a problem that basalt was generating inside of nether fortresses and could destroy some stuff, and they removed that. They changed zombified piglins, so now their arms are sticking straight out just like zombies. Different than piglins, who have their arms to the side, which are straight downwards. These guys are sticking straight forward. Also, that generate here in the nether dimension sometimes are getting cut off by chunk borders, which made them look very strange. Now we shouldn't see that. And the same thing was occurring with basalt pillars. They're getting cut off by the fossils. In the crimson as well as warped biomes here, once in a while you'll find one of these little fungus, and they're actually able to be placed in directly underneath of one of these big ones. So it kind of looked like this, would generate them like this, and it looked very weird, and they have now removed it. They also made a fix so that the vines, the warp blocks, as well as the shroom lights will no longer be able to override the stem of the large nether fungi. This is something we came across quite a bit during Proto Sky, where we have the player starting in the nether dimension with only 2 blocks, a nelium as well as a crimson fungus. And he has to grow up a tree and actually progress enough to get over into the overworld. It's going to be a really cool Skyblock series that we're going to be doing here on the channel. It's actually open up to subs as well as Patreon, so if you guys would like to join the sub server, make sure to check out my Patreon down in the description. And we're going to be opening up ProtoSky very soon. The problem we ran into is because we have such a limited start, we need to get at least some wood off of our giant fungus, but they could generate with the vines directly here in the center and destroying all of the wood, so you get no wood at the start. So with this amazing change, we should be able to not have to worry about that. When players were riding a strider, other players wouldn't be able to see the animation of the strider moving. There's a problem if there was glowstone on your offhand and you right click a respawn anchor, it would not only charge it but also set your spawn there, since you technically had your right hand empty, which is used to set your spawn point. Now they fixed it so it will only do charging the respawn anchor. If you remove whatever was in your offhand, and let's say you have something else in your offhand, now you right click it, it's going to set your spawn point. They fixed a bug to do it with if the player had Frostwalker on, they were being protected from fire when they're walking through it. They weren't being set on fire, but now you can see it goes back to the way it was. But it still protects you from stuff like magma blocks. The legs and the arm of the piglin as well as the zombified piglin were the same on the left side. And one thing I noticed weird about their textures, especially with the zombified piglins, is when they kind of like sit in a minecart and their joint here moves, they're actually not textured properly in the inside, which looks kind of strange when they sit in a minecart. They fix it so that soul campfires will also do twice as much damage when mobs are on them, just like Soulfire does. And I just recorded a video where I explained that there was inconsistencies with Soulfire campfires and their actual fire block. We can illustrate this by putting a villager on each of these, and you'll see that these villagers die twice as fast as this guy over here, because he just has normal fire. So definitely if you're trying to kill stuff using fire, make sure to use soul fire, because it's really fast and better than using normal fire or magma blocks or normal campfires. It's now possible to use blackstone to repair a stone shovel inside of an anvil if it's broken. Now something they still haven't fixed is ability to use blackstone to make stuff like brewing stands, pistons, and a bunch of other things, which normally use cobblestone. They finally fixed the bug to do with the huge fungus trees being able to replace waterlogged blocks. This is a bug report that I posted, and what was occurring inside of our farm here is these big huge trees, when they were grown right here, if I placed the waterlogged slabs here like I wanted to, the game would just come in here and replace them with wart blocks. With this bug fix, we should be able to put in those waterlogged slabs or just water, collect all the items a lot more easily, rather than using tons of hoppers like I did. So I should be able to update this farm and make it a lot nicer to build. There was a really strange bug that was occurring in these newer snapshots where the player would kind of walk up against one of these blocks like this, and they'd just instantly go into crawling mode without doing anything special and be underneath of the block for no reason whatsoever. I'm really glad they fixed it because this was getting quite annoying. They made a change to Endermen and how they deal with Wither Skulls. Now Endermen will try to avoid the Wither Skull just like other projectiles. So if you try to hit these guys with a projectile, they will just instantly teleport and it won't do anything to them. This means we will have to look at our Wither Rose farm using Endermen and making sure that they're able to still die from Wither Skull damage. Or we're going to have to kind of reinvent it so it does work again. They fixed a problem to do with jigsaw blocks. When they were generating structures, they weren't going invisible themselves. They fixed some bugs to do with tree generation. In this snapshot, I talked a little while ago that they did change how trees generate. They try to put all the trees kind of under similar properties so they act similar to each other. And this is causing some of these really big trees to actually grow very, very small. This also was causing problems if the tree were underground. It would often go right through any dirt that was here and try to place itself on top of this dirt rather than where the tree was over here. You can see that now fix that so the tree will go through the dirt as it does ignore it instead of being placed on top of it. And something we noticed that is if you bone meal these trees and there was a single piece of dirt up here, the game would try to finish off the dirt and place the tree on top of it. And now you can see it just goes right on through it. So some weird quirks that came out of those tree changes. This way the trees will be a lot more consistent. They also fixed a problem to do with when a tree would grow, observers would be updated. If the observers, if they were facing into an area where the leaves would grow, be able to update them. So if you had like a bunch of observers here, you should be able to detect that when these leaves touch these observers. And there's actually quite a few different problems to do with when trees grow, they weren't updating observers. So hopefully this solves them all. They fixed a problem to do with farmer villagers in the newer snapshots where they would come up to the farm ground but they wouldn't actually do any harvesting. They just keep walking back to their composter. So hopefully this fixes the problem that we also noticed in our bee farm that we use a farmer villager inside of. Hopefully be a lot more productive. Now one problem I do see with these guys is that they will often take their crops and just immediately put them into the composter. Then put all their crops into composters, and then they just get one bone meal, which they turn around to just bone meal the crop again. Rather than trying to give like the crops to other villagers or holding on to them until they have a complete inventory, then actually using some in the composter. Rather than trying to waste as many crops as possible into the composter and holding on to very little. Obviously you don't want them to hold on to too many, otherwise you won't be able to pick up any new crops. If you turn fire ticking off and then turn it back on again, it wasn't actually working, and they fixed it. They addressed a problem to do with fire that was on top of a netherrack block wasn't actually spreading. Piglins had this weird bug when they pick up a shield, they would have the gear equipping sound constantly occurring. There was a problem if you replace a snow layers with like a grass block, it was still keeping the snowy tag. Meaning this block would look like there was snow on it, even though there was no snow layers on it. It changes so that if you trade with a villager that has a compass, no longer rotate like a normal compass inside of this GUI. There's a problem that horse armor wasn't rendering when you would equip a saddle onto them. They fixed some edge cases to do with players that are inside of a mounted entity being able to throw an ender pearl to get off of it. They changed these basalt pillars that can generate in the soul sand valleys. Instead of them stopping right above the lava, they made them so they stop at the same level as the lava, so they look a lot more natural and you can actually hop up on top of them. It did seem pretty weird when they first came out, and I mentioned that at that time. They fixed it so that you can do control pick block on players' heads to get unique ones. They fixed a rendering issue to do with enchanted glittering doesn't occur in the inside of a boat. They also fixed the advancement Be Our Guest, which wasn't occurring when you would harvest honey from a bee's nest. Villagers that were being converted over to zombie villagers by a zombie who had persistence required, meaning he couldn't despawn, were also getting persistent required, so they'd just be like him. They fixed the problem to do with when fighting the dragon, the end gateway portals would not generate. This is something people point out during our Proto-Sky testing. They fixed it so that piglins will now sit nice and low inside of boats, rather than trying to sit like on top of them. They also fixed it so piglins that are riding hoglins or other piglins automatically dismount them. This is something I pointed out in the last snapshot and it looks a lot nicer. It seems to be a weird bug where piglins are suffocating just because their feet are inside of the ground. Summon in a villager. Yeah, I don't know. The villagers are also taking damage. That's really strange. They should only take damage if their head's in the ground. It looks like they fixed it so you can get multiple piglins to ride inside of a boat. If you try that trick again where we have like a mob inside the boat and then we push another mob in, they no longer ride on top of them. If you want to get those, you have to get them in the last snapshot. And they also fixed a bug where the piglins would automatically dismount when they're riding another mob. They fixed a pretty major bug that a lot of you guys point out to me that was happening in these new snapshots, which was any structure that generates specific mob would no longer see that as a valid structure and wouldn't be summoning mobs. So the other fortresses weren't summoning in like wither skeletons, ocean monuments weren't summoning in guardians, witch huts weren't summoning in witches. This only applied to old structures. If you generate a new world, it was working just fine. So this is my wither skeleton farm setup, and let's go ahead and test it. I just put in some snow layers just so anything can spawn on top of it. Let's go up here where the AFK spot is. We'll see if it actually works once again. So there's about 13 mobs underneath. Let's go into spectators so they can't despawn. And let's see what we got. Oh, awesome guys. We got some wither skeletons, also blazes, so it looks like it does work. Go ahead and replace the snow layers with wither roses, and we'll get rid of all the mobs, and we'll see if we can just get wither skeletons to spawn in here. So let's go up and see if something spawns in. So some mobs are spawning. Let's go ahead and go down. About 11 mobs in there. Look at that guys, they're all wither skeletons. So our wither skeleton farm just got extremely useful. I went ahead and blocked this off so we can actually count these guys. Otherwise, they would all go down this hole and be automatically killed by the wolf down below. This is going to make my new super simple wither skeleton farm even better yet. So definitely look forward to that and make sure you guys are subscribed. They fixed it so that redstone dust would not be able to be toggled if you were in adventure mode, because that would be kind of seen as being griefing. They also fixed it so that the old Minecraft logo is no longer in the end poet or the credits, and it has the new Minecraft logo. They also fixed it so that world gen settings will no longer cause crashes, which is something we've seen during our Proto-Sky testing where we had different villages that get loaded would crash the entire server. A lot of bug fixes in this version. You can tell they're getting very close to doing the pre-releases, as well as a lot of major changes which are going to affect the way we design farms. So we'll be doing a lot of testing during our snapshot testing stream, which will be right after this video. Make sure to go hop on over and join that stream. And you guys can hop onto the exact same world as me as we come up with these new designs. I'd love to hear you guys' opinions about all these changes down in the comments. Don't forget to go ahead and share this video with your favorite Minecrafters so they can learn about all these cool changes which are coming out to 1.16, as well as leave a like on the video. I'd like to thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye bye!